2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Podcast. I'm Mark with Marcus once again, and we're going to jump right into UEFA Champions League Matchday 1 action. It finally got started. There were a lot of great matchups, I think, for Matchday 1, kind of more than maybe usual, and then a few more games just kind of jumped up and surprised and had great moments or just surprising results that have jumped to the top of our rundown, Marcus.
Yeah, they weren't going to let us ease back into the Champions League.
No.
We started with a bang. I like it. Why delay? Why dilly-dally?
It's been an exciting start to the club season, I would say, as we kind of just jump back in from the international break that was, I guess, 2 weekends ago. We had games from the weekend, but a lot of, I think, international stars were out of those games in preparation for the Champions League. And now we're back into it. Right off the bat, though, we get a red card to Cristiano Ronaldo. Very controversial red card, and now could have ramifications going forward in the next couple matches. But what were your thoughts for the red card?
That it was very soft. Heard it was for pulling Jason Murillo's hair. That's the Valencia defender. But an ex-referee, and I just closed the link, said that it was for kicking, that he tried to kick him with his left foot, and kicking a player is a red card offense. Either way, it was soft, and Ronaldo was crying. And it's been a weird start for him at Juventus. He went goalless in August, and he finally scored last weekend against Sassuolo. And, you know, just when you think, all right, Ronaldo's going to start being Ronaldo again, he gets sent off. UEFA's going to listen. They're going to review the red card next week.
Right.
I doubt. It's usually a mandatory 1-game ban. I doubt they will give him 2 games because that would jeopardize. Oh no, that would kill his return to Manchester United, which you know UEFA loves. They love the image, the optics, and the clicks.
Yeah.
Why would they deny themselves those clicks?
It would be a very shocking decision by UEFA. It's literally a business decision.
Yes.
They're like...
And for that red card, I mean, it wasn't...
Yeah, exactly.
There was no necessarily violent conduct.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I mean, Juventus will play Young Boys next. You have to think they're strong enough to beat the little Swiss team without Ronaldo. And then, they go to Old Trafford in early October.
I think another thing with Juventus... There's so much attention on Ronaldo right now, and like this isn't really out of the norm of what they've been for the past 5 or 6 years, but they are perfect in Serie A. They beat Valencia a man down 2-0.
Yeah, Ronaldo was sent off early.
Without Ronaldo, Ronaldo is, you know, one of their best players, if not their best player. It's a statement by Juventus that they are once again, I think, a top 2 or 3 favorite to win the Champions League, in my opinion, outside of maybe Barcelona. And then I know Liverpool just beat PSG, but I still really like PSG. And we don't have to get into this whole thing now, but I just think it's a real...
So you're saying Juventus would be not top 2 or 3, but 3 or 4?
Well, there's kind of the tiers of they could actually win the competition, and then there's the tiers of, they could make a run to the semifinal.
You're putting them in the top tier.
They're in the top tier for sure for me.
I will not fight you on that.
Okay, that's good.
I'll fight you on other things. No, they're. Juventus is primed to win this competition. It's really the only thing they have left to cement the progress they've made in this century, or to confirm it. What do they have? 7 straight Serie A titles, a complete domination of Italian soccer in recent history. So they just need that cherry on top.
And from a favorite doing well in their opener to a favorite really with a very surprising home defeat, Manchester City drops to Lyon 2-1. What happened? Why? How is this allowed to happen? Pep Guardiola will say was not allowed to. He was in like a suite at the stadium
he was
because
banned for,
he got a red card.
Yeah.
What was that from? The Liverpool match?
That was from, I think last season's defeat. There was an outburst. I forget what he did, but he was banned, and he was watching the game with his daughter in one of the suites. And, heartbreaking scenes of his daughter crying at the end and Pep consoling her.
It's just one game.
Yeah.
They'll be okay.
This is a group that, we did our Champions League preview show not too long ago, and I thought Man City was going to sleepwalk away with this group. Now they're bottom.
They're last.
Lyon top, Hoffenheim, Shakhtar second, and Man City. So I was listening to a podcast from across the pond in England, and I think to a man, each guest said Man City was one of the favorites to win the Champions League. I don't know. I don't think. They have this domination. They dominated England last year,
right?
Or at least the Premier League. But have they improved enough this offseason to really, say Man City will probably win or could win? Are they in that tier 1, the favorites?
I don't think they're in the tier 1. I think they're in the tier 2 for me.
What's keeping them out of tier 1?
Well, I think it is one, and we've said this before on this podcast, or at least I think I've said it before, that while their gap in the Premier League, I think they won by like 20 points or something crazy. I don't think it was as big as those numbers indicate.
Sure.
Which I don't think is really that unpopular of an opinion.
Well, no, last season the other big teams were slipping and struggling. I mean, Man United was second. Liverpool were out of the title race by Christmas, as were Tottenham. Chelsea finished 5th. They were at war with their coach the entire time.
Yeah.
Arsenal was busy backstabbing Arsene Wenger and pushing him out of the club.
Well, so I read that Man City, after the weekend, they had a scheduled day off on Monday that Pep Guardiola canceled.
After last weekend.
Right, so they played Fulham on Saturday and they won 3-0.
Okay, they were supposed to have Monday off.
They were supposed to have Monday off. Pep canceled that and had them practice. And I guess it was a little speculative, but the idea being that they weren't taking Fulham seriously enough, even though they won 3-0. And maybe it was just maybe this was a planned tactic by Guardiola ahead of the Champions League. That I guess
to rattle his team's cage.
I guess maybe backfired, but yeah. So I think it's just certainly the manager isn't comfortable with how his team is mentally at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's easy for them to be complacent given the scale of their victory or their triumph last season in England, and they, in the transfer market, nothing is jumping out. Where I say, oh, Man City really strengthened. In this position, that position. I still think they could use maybe an upgrade in defensive midfield with Fernandinho. I don't really see him at the very top, and he's 33. If they get into the Champions League final with Fernandinho playing in arguably the most important position on the field, it could be problematic. And then Kevin De Bruyne is also injured. He's got a long-term 3-month injury. I don't know. I'm just not ready to jump on Man City's Champions League bandwagon.
I agree with you, and I think it's just more on Pep Guardiola, and I just feel like maybe he just pushed the wrong buttons this week. Not to say that he'll continue to push the wrong buttons, but just sort of a hiccup for him, and like not being on the sideline during the game, I guess, is also tough.
I don't know how much that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that they're just kind of the adjustments you're going to make are almost as pre-plotted.
Yeah.
And like what subs you could possibly bring on and what you're going to do, and like, but yeah, that whole canceling the off day thing just kind of really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the best managers aren't going to constantly be doing the exact right thing every week, but it's just sort of if I'll kind of look. I do expect them to be fine in their group and advance to the knockout rounds of the Champions League. But I guess I'll just kind of be looking at their domestic play in the next few weeks and kind of seeing how they respond.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely slipped on a banana peel and at home. Good thing for Man City, there were only 36,000 people at Etihad Stadium to see them, which is kind of weird. You know, I know
Really?
the group stage isn't, their opponents aren't the most enticing matchups, but
I mean, I would have gone.
a lot of the headlines talk about them staying away in droves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. And then, of course, they like to boo the anthem. It's like Man City fans have a problem with the Champions League. And I think it goes back to 2014 when UEFA hit them with a fine and a transfer restriction because of their financial fair play violations.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I think there are more Manchester United fans. There are more Manchester United fans worldwide. So Manchester City is kind of drawing fans from their local area until their regional and international fan base catches up. And these are the kind of games that local fans who, Manchester's not the richest city in England.
Uh-huh.
They can't go to all of them. These games aren't free.
Right.
So if you have to stay away. Although if there's one Champions League group stage game that I would attend as a Man City fan, it'd be Lyon. I'm not going to show up to see Hoffenheim or Shakhtar.
I guess so. And
no disrespect to those teams, but
I mean, well, how much credit do you give to Lyon for going in and
all of it?
Yeah,
all the credit. Yeah. And
I
would talk more about
young
them, but I
French
just
team.
didn't see them. Yeah, didn't see the game.
From what I understand, they have some really talented young players.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of like Monaco from a few years ago, or was it 2 years ago? Not that they're going to win Ligue 1, but they're just kind of they've got some good academy players that have come up, and they're just maybe a little better than people realize.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe it could do some damage. Maybe they could advance to the knockout rounds. Looking pretty good after winning, I guess, their toughest match. in the group
Three
stage.
points at Man City.
So.
Yeah. You have to. They have to be the favorites for that second spot, or maybe even the top spot.
We'll see. We'll see how Man City does at Lyon. I guess months from now.
Yeah.
But,
I think that'll be in December.
Yeah.
And everything will change between now and then. But
for sure.
Good start.
All right. So on to some more, I guess, headlining matchups, at least before they started, and I guess lived up to the hype. First one is Inter versus Tottenham. So Tottenham had a 1-goal lead before Inter scored 2 late goals. Didn't see much from Harry Kane.
Yeah.
This is the second time Tottenham has let a lead slip away late in the last few weeks. I guess Tottenham has been a popular dark horse kind of the last 2 years maybe. I mean, I think going into last year, a lot of people were like, oh, maybe Tottenham can challenge for the Premier League title. And now going into this season with I don't know, I guess there's just constantly a lot of Harry Kane hype, especially after the World Cup. Maybe they just said Tottenham can do some damage this year. And they run into the Serie A, and like many people that do run into the Serie A, they have a little more trouble than they would like. But I don't know. Where's Tottenham as far as Champions League expectations at this point?
I think Tottenham, if they just get to the knockout rounds, they should be happy with that. Place in the last 16, maybe quarterfinalists. I definitely don't see them as one of the favorites. And, I mean, they're in a tough group, possibly the toughest group. Barcelona, Inter, PSV. Mauricio Pochettino, after the game, said it was Tottenham's best performance of the season. That was until the end when they conceded 2 late goals. And he was very angry, very spiky in the press conference because he left Toby Alderweireld, Kieran Trippier at home, or they didn't travel. Hugo Lloris is either injured or still in the doghouse from his hilarious drunk driving case. Dele Alli also injured. Song Heung-min. Half Tottenham's team is either injured or missing in action. And the other half just might be tired. I just read before we went in, Pochettino had the team sleep at Tottenham's practice facility after they returned from Milan on Tuesday night so that they could have better preparation for Saturday's Premier League game. They had 12 players playing in the World Cup. 8 were in the semifinal. And for as much as Pochettino tries to deny that they're tired, all the news reports indicate that these guys are tired. Mm-hmm. And he has one of the most grueling practice regimes in the league. He works these guys hard. This is now the 4th season they've been at it. And I think there's a little bit of discontent between the team and the manager over his methods, his approach.
Well, I'm looking ahead at Tottenham's schedule, and they've got 2 games a week until the international break in October.
Right.
And then that 2-game-a-week schedule kind of just continues on with Champions League competition and...
Well, the next 1, 2, 3 games, I mean, they should, if they drop any points, you know, this narrative of tired Tottenham won't go away. Mm-hmm. And then they play Barcelona on October the 3rd.
I know. I was just thinking if this running leads to Inter Milan, I mean, Barcelona looked really great in their first match and has been looking really good in La Liga.
Yeah.
Tottenham could be in trouble of not advancing out of the group.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when I first looked at the schedule, they're at Brighton, home to Watford in the League Cup, and then at Huddersfield. You know, I was like, all right, this is kind of cupcake for them. They should be able to handle that easily. But if they don't, you know, if they get knocked out of the cup or come out with fewer than 4 points from these 2 Premier League games, that could be trouble.
Could be trouble. English club that is not worried about how tired they are is Liverpool.
Yeah.
They had, I guess this was the best game of Matchday 1. Liverpool.
Yeah.
I guess shocking PSG, stealing one from PSG. A lot of people really critical of PSG after this game. That's what happens when you give up a late winner. But gigantic win for Liverpool, kind of getting back on their Champions League hype train horse, whatever.
Yeah.
Mohamed Salah flying around. But I don't know. What kind of was your reaction when
this
Liverpool
was
kind of put this away?
Probably Liverpool's biggest night for 6 months. You know, they talk about famous Anfield nights in Europe.
Right.
They don't get bigger, at least for Liverpool this year, than PSG. That was, September the 18th they played?
Right.
October, November, December, January, February. Yeah, probably till around the quarterfinals. You won't see a bigger occasion for Liverpool in Europe. So yeah, it was a great win for Liverpool. I kind of thought it was against a fake PSG team in a way because Marco Verratti was not in. He had that meltdown against, I think it was against Real Madrid last season. Mm-hmm. Who knocked PSG out? I think it was Real Madrid. He was sent off in the last game. Yeah. He's so important to that team. And they had Marquinhos playing in defensive midfield. That didn't work. Liverpool, you know, scored twice. Two early goals, or not early goals, but 2 first-half goals. PSG showed their attacking power by, you know, clawing back and getting 2 back. And then Roberto Firmino came on and scored with 1 eye. Late.
It was pretty
very,
nuts.
very dramatic. Yeah, dramatic ending.
I guess you kind of said it, but there was a lot of criticism on PSG after this game. I think they're going to be just fine, and I still expect them to do better in the competition than Liverpool. As you said, playing at Anfield on a European night, as they say, is as tough a venue. I mean, we talk about Camp Nou or wherever else, Old Trafford. Playing at Anfield as a team like PSG, or if you come in as some big European club outside of England, like it's just as tough as it gets as far as playing in a away atmosphere.
PSG hasn't progressed past the quarterfinal in the Champions League in 30-something years.
I think that happens this year.
If they are to reach, the rarefied air of the semifinals, I think you have to do better at a place like Anfield. And then, let me ask the question. Well, you already answered it. You are not ready to bury PSG.
No, definitely not. No way.
And by bury them, I mean count them out of the semifinal.
No, definitely not. The only thing is, I actually was able to watch a good amount of this game and I don't watch PSG in League One competition often. And I guess one thing that kind of stuck out to me is Neymar kind of loses the ball a lot because he's constantly, it seems like every time he gets the ball.
Well, he's on it a lot.
He's on the ball a lot. But anytime he's close to the 18, he's basically just trying to beat one, maybe two guys. And in Ligue 1, maybe he can do that, Trent Alexander-Arnold is still young, and Neymar is definitely a superior player to him, but he's probably better than most defenders in the French league. And then Virgil van Dijk
is he?
Well, Virgil van Dijk isn't really in, there's nobody like Virgil van Dijk really in the French league. These guys are just better players. And I do wonder, that's kind of the only question I think I'll ever have with PSG is when they're competing at a certain level domestically, and then to just suddenly, in a 2 or 3 day period, you're suddenly playing at just a higher level. And you've just been getting used to this lower level competition as a player for, I don't know, maybe it's been a few weeks since you've played something. It's just that slight, maybe it's just those inches and that slight mental idea that, I can beat Trent Alexander-Arnold, but really he's actually pushing you.
If you're Neymar, you like to think you can, yeah.
Right, but maybe he's just doing just enough to throw him off just enough that he loses the ball and we're not just as in sync as maybe we are versus lesser competition. And that's just always, I think, the question PSG always faces is, are they just able to bounce into this higher competition back and forth?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I am ready to bury PSG.
Oh.
Because we knew last season that their goalkeeping and defense was a problem. They did not address those problems adequately in the transfer market because Thiago Silva is still there. Marquinhos was playing in the midfield. I forget who was playing next to Thiago Silva. But the defense is still leaky. PSG, in this era of their history, is judged pretty much entirely on the Champions League.
Yeah.
They played 2 big Champions League games before the end of the calendar year. This was one of them, and it was a giant mess up by first-year head coach Thomas Tuchel. Now, seconds before we went into the studio, I just read a report in France's, let me get the outlet right. It was a very reputable, Le Parisien. PSG coach Thomas Tuchel and the sporting director Antero Henrique aren't talking. And Thiago Silva said something in the mix zone about, problems in the transfer market where they didn't address the departure of Thiago Motta, who's the veteran midfielder. They wanted N'Golo Kante, Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, or Renato Sanchez. Got none of them. And then Nasser Al-Khalifi, the president of PSG, is kind of letting this all play out from a distance.
Yeah.
I don't see how that can be.
It doesn't sound positive.
No. And I know it's still early, but Thomas Tuchel has as we saw in Dortmund, he will fall out with his boss, and he will fall on his sword for, what he thinks is the right thing to do. And we're not debating on whether he's right or wrong, but yeah, it doesn't sound promising. And I've said this privately. I'm not sure if I said it on the show, but there's a man named Arsene Wenger just waiting in the wings for another job. Wenger's very close with the Qataris. He's always on beIN Sport, saying his most important comments and statements. I think he is ready-made for that job, and Tuchel might just be a placeholder.
I would love to see Arsene Wenger take the PSG job. I think that'd be very exciting.
Yeah, I see him either at PSG or Real Madrid by this time next year.
You think so?
Yeah.
How old is he?
Immortal.
Well, I think either one of the clubs you just mentioned, regardless of who takes the job, like you rarely see someone there for more than like 4 years, and that would be like kind of a long time.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 if you win 3 Champions Leagues, like
right.
Zidane. I see storm clouds brewing for PSG, and the team is still imbalanced. Going forward, they're like a Ferrari at the back. A used Toyota Camry, heavily used. And Gigi Buffon brought in a goalkeeper. Now he's the backup. That could be problematic over time. I'm ready to bury PSG. Count them out of the semifinal.
Wow.
Moving on.
Moving on. Well, there. I guess we'll go through these kind of quickly, but there were a couple of Americans who had good days in the Champions League, and kind of 2 milestone occurrences for both of them. One is the golden child, Christian Pulisic. He turned 20 years old on Tuesday, Matchday 1, and he did not start for Dortmund, but he did sub on in the 69th minute, and then he did score shortly thereafter on a sort of deflection goal.
It was very much a deflection.
It was,
but he had to be there.
Right. If you want to be nice about it, it was like a hustle goal. Yeah. It would be the best thing you could say about it.
They all count the same.
Yeah, and it was worth 1. But
and that gave them the victory.
And it gave them the 1-0 victory over Club Brugge, and Dortmund off to a much better start in this year's Champions League
than last year.
year's.
And they have to get to the round of 16.
I would think so.
Yeah.
In this group, for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess Pulisic is no longer a teenager, and we've had all this talk of just his teenage brilliance and most goals as a teenager.
Yeah, he's 20 now.
All these sort of accomplishments age-wise in both the Bundesliga and for U.S. soccer. But I think kind of the biggest thing is on a team with some legit stars in Dortmund, Pulisic is sort of climbing the ladder, climbing the ranks within the club.
Climbing the ranks? He's played 100 games.
Well, that's
before age 20.
I'm saying beyond being a bona fide starter or like power sub off the bench, he's a key player. He's 2 or 3 key player on the team.
Yeah, and he hasn't been playing because of injury. That he had in August, September. It's slowed his start to the season, but when fit, he's key, and he might be their most valuable asset at that club.
You basically have Marco Reus, Mario Götze.
Older.
And then, Pulisic. And, I would say Götze is maybe still the best player, but Pulisic is basically right on his tail.
I was about to say finished.
No, he's not finished. Come on.
Mario Götze?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. He's still a very good player.
Yeah.
But
Germany coach Yogi Low and I would disagree.
Okay. And we're not going to get into how long will Pulisic be at Dortmund?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
Well,
how long will he, according to Transfermarkt, Pulisic is, the most valuable player at Dortmund. Mm-hmm. How long will he be there?
I think he'll be there through the season.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I don't see him going anywhere in January unless Dortmund just is in a free fall, which
doesn't look like it.
I don't know how they're doing in the Bundesliga. Second after 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he'll be there. He'll play a lot of games. Played 43 games last 2 seasons ago, 42 last year. He's going to play a lot this year. And then, I think he's going to gauge the interest, see who wants him, what the squad looks like at the potential buying club. And I could see him making a 9-figure transfer.
I think so.
Within the next year or 2.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And there's not much more to say about him. I think we're going to see a lot more of this sort of performance as the Champions League moves on. He'll be just heavily involved in everything that Dortmund is doing.
Yeah.
But one guy
which is great for an American.
Yes. And it's great that we don't have to just talk about one American in the Champions League. We can talk about 2.
Sure.
Weston McKennie for Schalke, also Bundesliga. He started and played the full 90 and ended up with an assist in Schalke's 1-1 tie to Porto.
At age 20.
Yes, so another very young player.
He's about a month older than Pulisic.
Yeah, and it was his first start in the Champions League, and just very encouraging to see. He didn't play on the weekend, I think probably because he played in both of US's friendlies, and then
he did, yes.
He was going to play the full 90 in this game, I guess was the plan, so they rest him over the weekend. But he's a bona fide starter on a Champions League Bundesliga team. He started each game for Schalke prior to the weekend game. So he's just kind of another player to keep your eye on if you're keeping track of Americans abroad.
Getting games.
Yeah. Getting lots
Champions
of games.
League club. Played 25 last season. And he should probably play at least 35 this season, which is great for, kid from just outside of Dallas.
Right. And unfortunate to say, though, that Schalke has more points in Champions League than they do Bundesliga. They're 0-3.
Oh, boy.
But, hopefully that'll turn around.
And I think we talked about this on the preview show that, Schalke could be playing in the round of 16 quarterfinal if they get a stroke of luck.
Stroke of luck.
Galatasaray beat Lokomotiv Moscow. Heard a nice tidbit that Galatasaray's and Lokomotiv Moscow's coaches, the last time these 2 teams met was in 2003, I believe, where Galatasaray coach Fatih Terim, I butchered his name.
Okay.
But
it's all right.
He's a legend. Was the coach against Lokomotiv's Yuri Semin. Both of them are still there.
Wow.
At their clubs. 15 years later. They
That's
meet again.
insane.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
It is. I think that's... I was stunned when I heard that. But, they're also in Schalke's group. They're also in Porto's group. I still think Porto is going to win it, and Schalke will come in second.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Tougher games than they look on paper to go away to those places.
Savvy managers.
But anything else from match day 1 in the Champions League that...
No, I missed most of it outside of the Liverpool game.
Messi had a hat trick.
Yes, Messi had a hat trick.
Real Madrid is still really good, despite no Ronaldo.
That's about it. Real Madrid might be... I saw a headline, didn't read the piece, that some are wondering whether Real Madrid is better now without Ronaldo. I can't see how that could possibly be the case.
They
so
won
I'm going to say
3
no.
of 4 Champions League titles. What are these people saying?
I don't know.
Like, how could it even be proven that they're better if they won a triple, I guess, but
I don't know.
They did that with Ronaldo.
They did it, yeah. I don't see how you can lose Ronaldo and be better.
Yeah, so they're not, but they're still extremely good and dangerous.
Yes, and capable of winning the competition.
Yeah, definitely. Well, games to watch this weekend. We stay in the Bundesliga for a quick second. I kind of picked out this game because of my patriotism.
Good game. Yeah.
Yeah, Schalke takes on Bayern Munich, looking for their first points. But my interest will be in Weston McKennie, and just to see how he does playing against a Champions League potential winner and the best team in the Bundesliga, chock full of stars. It's Saturday at 12:30 at Schalke. So keep your eye on that one.
Yeah,
Fox Sports
I remember Pulisic a couple years ago played against Dortmund and did very well. A lot of dribbles, a couple of key passes, and that sort of was where he announced himself as, this guy could potentially be not just a good player, but a great player.
Yeah.
I will be looking for the same thing from Weston McKennie. How does he perform? Is Schalke at home?
They're at home.
They're at home. Yeah. How does he perform against Bayern Munich? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it's too much to expect, Pulisic levels of quality, but just to sort of be really a legitimate. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. Your game is still the same sort of player. That level, I think, is.
Yeah. Will he be an impact player? A couple crunching tackles and keep the ball moving, or will he be chasing shadows? We'll see. Tough test for him.
Yeah. And then in the Premier League, 2 teams still perfect: Chelsea and Liverpool. Have they played 5 matches? 5. Is that how many match days have been in the Premier League? It's either 4 or 5. They won them all. Liverpool plays first. They host Southampton Saturday at 10 a.m. and Chelsea then plays at West Ham Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern times. But I think they'll both win, and they'll keep it going.
Yeah, they're both 5 for 5 at the top, 1 and 2. I'm not in the habit of looking at the Premier League standings before October or November, but yeah, Chelsea and Liverpool.
I think, I don't like to look at the standings until that about time as well, but when a team hasn't lost or tied, that's when I kind of just stay focused on their records.
I see Liverpool and I see Liverpool overrunning Southampton without much or any fuss. Chelsea and West Ham were the worst team out of the gate, but then they turned around and beat Everton last week. So which West Ham will show up? Will it be the pre-international break West Ham or the post-international break West Ham?
I also think that Salah is off to a bit of a slower start than his explosion last season.
He is.
And he won't keep that pace or regain that pace. But I am predicting his first multi-goal game of the season in this weekend.
Okay, and if that doesn't happen, what are the...
what happens?
Yeah, what are the stakes? Do we cane you?
I don't know. You can belittle me on the podcast next week.
Deal.
All right, that's all I got, unless you've got some secret part of the rundown for us, Marcus.
Secret final word?
Yeah.
No, not really. Great.
Zlatan's goal was cool.
Yes. Yes, and a shout out to one of our colleagues. Zlatan scored his 500th goal, and it was as good as some of his best. I told you when he came to MLS, he'd be just a highlight machine. And
that's what he is.
So far, he's been as good as advertised. So
maybe we can discuss him a little bit more next week. Or not. Who knows? But
we'll see at the time, when the time comes.
Thank you to everyone that has been listening and is still listening. If you're listening on YouTube, please stop doing so and start listening to us on iTunes by going to iTunes and searching NESN, that's NESN, and you will see our podcast page where you can follow all NESN Soccer podcasts as well as all NESN podcasts. And feel free to comment or to tweet at Marcus MKOmard or myself, Mark D. Benz. You can find us. We're pretty easy to find, access us. White pages, as we were talking about
and
before
be
the podcast.
sure to rate and review the podcast,
right,
because that's how we get found.
Yep, sure is. Thanks again, and enjoy the matches this weekend.
Boy, I tell you so. Come on!